So let's open it up to questions. And it sounds like, Rich, you've got our first one.
I do. Actually, I could have probably 4 or 5, but I'm not going to. I'm so glad you're here, Carmen, because there are actually a few questions I've always had about people on stage. So I guess the first one is, in your field, especially dance, I've often wondered how you can take individual groupings, because if everybody were doing the same thing on stage, it would probably be easier for me to understand how the choreographer explains what was in his or her mind, and then allows the dancers to pick that up and to practice it and to rehearse it and learn it. But not everybody's doing the same thing. You have people leaping over here, people leaping over there, and whatever they're doing. I don't quite understand how such a small number of people, whether you call them directors or teachers or coaches or whatever, how they impart that information, that what they have in mind. Is there something in writing? Is there something that's diagrammed for them, or how do they explain what needs to be done, and how do they get so many different parts moving in some way that matches the choreography? That's number one. But so how do you do all that, I guess, is the question in basic form. The other thing is anything organic about the process? So the choreographer has a specific idea about what's supposed to happen on stage, but does that ever change based on how things go during rehearsal? So would they say, "Oh, no, yeah, this is what I wanted, but that's not what I want. I see that doesn't work now." Does that all play itself out on stage?
Yes, absolutely. So let's go back to the process. So like I was saying, we have up to 6 hours, like long rehearsal days. So if a choreographer has an idea, most of the time nothing's written down, unless it's a piece that's already been done and the choreography is being retaught to us. But if it's a brand new ballet, a lot of times we will all be in a room together, depending on how many people the choreographer is working with. And if it's a section that we're all doing the same thing, the choreographer will say, "Okay, I want these people. We'll go here. Here are the counts that you have. This is the feeling that I want. Here's the step." And we'll do it together. But then if he's like, "I want," like, for instance, the ballet I just did, there were 15 people, 5 trios. And at one point, each woman danced with the man that she was paired with at the beginning. And so all 15 of us sat in the room while our choreographer went I think we each had 2 6s of the music, and he would choreograph 2 6s on 2 people while the rest of us just kind of sat there and waited our turn. And then he'd move on to the next person. And so it's a slow process, very, very hands-on, very interactive process. And yes, absolutely, the ideas can change. So also in the Rhapsody program, Zalman, who choreographed Rhapsody in Blue, had a completely different version beforehand. He had done it in a workshop, and then we put it on stage, and he completely redid the ballet. So he took ideas from the last one and made this one feel a little bit different. And yes, if steps aren't working for one dancer in a way that works for them, the step can change. So there is a lot of like an organic process. If something really works for somebody, the choreographer is most likely going to let them keep that instead of trying to make it something that doesn't look good on that dancer.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Carmen, thank you so much for that. I was fascinated by the technology. So was that a sports medicine person that came up with the gel fill, or was that another dancer, or how did that come about?
I believe it was another dancer who had retired and gone into another field and was just kind of thinking, like, why have we been using all these other things? It used to be, I still use lamb's wool at the beginning of this year, masking tape on my toes. They're gel toe pads, but they're just bulky. So there are a lot of other different things, but I think this dancer really decided that let me find the solution to this problem instead of Band-Aids. She was like, we need to do something that's actually going to work.
Okay, and then the shoe technology, so the cuboid bone, I just had to look that up and see where it was. And so that would be when you have fallen arches. Is that the bone that drops, or is that
sort of? So it's because I'm like poking at mine. It's like, so when you point your foot, the joints that are moving, that joint is moved a lot. And I think that's what causes that bone to drop, because the things around it are so mobile. A lot of us have hypermobile joints. So like because we're using them so much, it's basically major injuries, like the ligaments and tendons and things are all so loose that our bones can't really hold themselves together anymore. So it's not so much a fallen arch, but the bone just being out of place.
Is that really painful? Is it?
It can be, yes. That's how, for me, I knew. So I was saying I had surgery. I had an extra bone. So I had an osteogonum in my heel. So between my talus and my calcaneus, I had an extra little fingernail-sized bone. So every time I pointed my foot, it pinched in the back of my heel. And it was very painful, but because of that, it pushed my cuboid down. It moved some of my metatarsal bones around, and it hurt really, really bad. And that was kind of like the cuboid being out of place all the time was kind of an indicator that there were other things that weren't supposed to be there. But yes, it can be extremely painful. But if you step on the little balls, it just pops it back up in there.
Great questions. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Gene Perry, and I probably got here a little late. How long have you been dancing?
Oh, so I've been dancing total, it's going on 21 years now, but professionally I started in 2009.
That's a huge amount of time stressing the legs and the feet. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's all part of one of the fun things, I guess, about dance is just because I've done it my whole life. It's so much a part of me. There are a lot of things I'm like, I don't know that part of my life without dance in it, or I don't remember doing anything without dance in it. But it's all of those little things, because there is so much to think about when you are dancing and performing, that it takes all of those years and then some after that to remember how to go on stage and do those, make it look effortless when it's really not.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I did a semester in college of African and ethnic dance, and believe me, I had no idea, especially when you get into these full leaps, how much energy and how much, I mean, this is all out athleticism is what I'm about to say. Yeah. These are not little tiny baby steps. These are like huge leaps and things, and it takes a lot of energy. I mean, do you do any additional aerobic exercises, strength training or anything still?
I should. We have an on-site physical therapist, and she's a very strong proponent for us doing cardio work at the gym. Yes. Because ballet is anaerobic, and she's like, you guys have got to do cardio. Case in point, one of the ballets we dance to Handel's Messiah, the entire piece of music, and a lot of the corps de ballet is in almost all of the sections. So that's about 3 hours of dancing nonstop. A lot of running backstage, changing costumes to go on for the next section, and there really isn't time to take a break. So cardio is really important. I don't like to do it, but I should. But I also really enjoy going to yoga classes. So when I have time, I will definitely hit a yoga class, if
Yeah.
anything, in addition to rehearsal.
I would just like to say the idea, because you guys, the dancers, my experience watching and participating is that you make all this effort seem so effortless. And that's the remarkable thing about it. To go through a couple of hours of that strenuous exercise with a smile on your face and, and standing up straight, that's amazing. It's fantastic field you're in.
Thank you. And just a fun fact for everyone, in all these years that I've been dancing, I still get incredible nerves. Like, not so I wouldn't call it stage fright, but I get extremely nervous about certain things that I'm dancing, to the point, like, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I can't eat anything. So, and I know another dancer who shakes. She calls herself a hummingbird because she's so shaky before she goes on stage just from being nervous. So for some of us, none of that never goes away. It's always an aspect of the performance, but I think it's a really cool aspect, at least for me, because I know that my adrenaline's pumping and I'm ready, and it's something that I'm sharing with the audience, and that's a really cool way to share with people.
Does it go away as you're performing?
Sometimes, yes. Most of the time, once I get onto the stage and I can see what I can of the house, it does go away. But we did Romeo and Juliet a couple years ago, and that was the first soloist role that I've ever had that wasn't just one solo and I was done. So I was one of the gypsy girls. So we were throughout the entire ballet kind of soloists. And I was so nervous in the first act that I was shaking. Then I started crying during the ball where Romeo and Juliet met, but we had masks on, and I cried the entire act. I could not stop crying. And I was like, thank goodness this mask is on my face, because I'm having like a complete emotional breakdown right now. And my partner was like, it's going to be okay. I was like, I know it's going to be okay, but I cannot stop right now. I don't know what to do with myself. So sometimes it's terrifying, but you make it through. And then the next time it's a lot more fun.
That's crazy. I actually had another question. I've got all kinds of questions.
Shoot them. I like it.
So when you're training or when you're practicing, so how far out do you introduce, or does your choreographer introduce the choreography for a given show? Like, are you doing overlap of 3 shows, or is it like focused on one show the whole time you're practicing?
That's a really good question. We are major overlaps. So we perform 8 programs a year, pretty much a program every month from September. We do a September, an October, sometimes in November, Nutcracker, and then February, March. We skipped, February, March, April, and May. So we do a lot. And that leaves us with weeks to prepare for shows. So for Carmen, we started last week, but we were also rehearsing the Rhapsody in Blue program. There have been times that we were doing 3 ballets at one time, like 3 different programs. So yeah, at times you can be learning so many things. By the time you get to the last program, so just doing just Carmen now has been really refreshing, because we were doing the Rhapsody in Blue program with additions of Carmen in there. In the past, we've done a different program at Thanksgiving, so Nutcracker's given about 2 weeks to come back together. And when you have brand new people in the company who haven't danced the same parts as you have been dancing in Nutcracker for years and years, it can be really frustrating and difficult when you're new, because you realize that you've been given no time to do the work that you need to do. But after the first year, you kind of learn really quickly that you have a few hours to pick up your choreography. But we also have great resources. If we're doing a new ballet, we record it during rehearsal. So you can watch the videos online. So they're put up online. So you can watch our videos online of our performances or of our rehearsals, and then past performances we can watch as well after rehearsal, just kind of to submit what we learned, because we're going to keep going the next day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Carmen, this is Rich again. Could you say a few words about how child dancers are scheduled? I mean, I know that they have certain limitations on how long they can be, how late and how long they can be on stage, working, if you want to call it that. But how do they handle I mean, difficult, I'm sure, a practice schedule for them, and sometimes getting very late in the evening.
Okay, so Nutcracker is pretty, for us right now, is the major thing that we have the kids in. And so they actually, since we don't work on Saturday, the kids rehearse all day on Saturday. So they'll get there fairly early in the morning and rehearse through the day on Saturday and Sunday. But then when it comes to theater time, unfortunately, I think the kids love it, but they have to be there this later in the evenings. And I think the company tries to work to get, for the most part, to have, they're in Act 1. So they try to get the Act 1 kids in as early as possible during the day. And then the ones that are in Act 2, they try to get them in as early as possible. Or they just run the ballet out of order. So they'll do gingerbreads, or what the kids dance. So they'll do gingerbread first, and then they'll do the rest of us, so the kids can go home earlier. But most of the time, the Clara has to stay. That poor girl has to sit there the whole time. But I think the kids really do love it. But just to keep them and us, since I guess they volunteer, so they don't have any real restrictions on their time that they need to be there. But the company does try to keep them so they're not out super late during the week when they do have to rehearse with us.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks, Carmen. So I did want to ask, there were several terms that you were talking about, and maybe not everyone is familiar with, like the core or just the different parts of a ballet company. Can you talk about the different roles and positions that might be within a ballet company?
Absolutely. So our company, we have a ranked company. Not all companies are ranked, but we start with trainees. And so our trainees are actually unpaid. So they come in and they kind of extras, for lack of a better term. They're younger. They're figuring out if they are really committed to dancing. A lot of times they're out of high school, so they're getting used to a real professional work versus a professional school, which can be very different from working in the company. And people are typically trainees for about a year or 2 years. Then after that, we have apprentices, which they are like basically company members, but they're also kind of finding where they would fit in best. So maybe it's not our company, maybe it's a different company, but they're really they're a little older, getting to know the ropes of the ballet world a little bit better. And then after that, you have the corps de ballet. And so the corps is the group of dancers that really makes up the body of the company. That's kind of what corps means. So that is, if you were to see like a swan lake, all of the swans that are standing on the side of the stage, that's the corps. So they basically do all the group dances. They do, if we have to move set pieces, we move set stuff like on stage. I've had to do that a few times. You have to do like the unfavorable animal roles. Just kind of anything that is a large group of people, anything that is making up the town or the scenery or the bulk of the show. That's what the corps does. Then you have their soloists who have they dance the solo roles. In ballets without stories, they do a solo and then they're done. They don't have to do a lot of other things. And then the principals, who are like the stars of the show. So we have a few principals in our company, one of whom is retiring this year. Lillian, she is dancing Carmen. And her retirement is sad, but she is an amazing dancer. And so the principals, they do the leads. So they're your Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. They're Princess Aurora. They are the lead swan. Like, they do the hard stuff. And then the same thing goes for the men. The men do exactly the same things, just the male version. So the men partner in the corps, they partner as soloists, they even get solos as soloists, and then they're the princes when they're principals as a male.
Thanks, Carmen. And how does a dancer kind of move up the ranks?
So that is all dependent upon the artistic staff and the artistic director. So some dancers can be in the company for a very long time and kind of stay in the position that they've been in. So some dancers might make it to a soloist and they won't get promoted past soloist. Whereas some dancers really young will come in and exceptional talent, and they will be promoted really quickly through the ranks of the company. So it just kind of depends on what the director likes, which can prompt a lot of dancers to leave companies and go to other companies just so they're having a different artistic eye on them, because not the same director isn't going to see, or the same company isn't going to see the same things in dancers as at other companies. So it's very subjective.
Thanks, Carmen. I have a bunch more questions, but I'll open it up to the rest of the group. Does anyone, Rich or anyone else who have questions?
I have a question.
Hey.
Hello, Carmen. So I joined in a little late. That was me on the phone earlier. But I feel kind of silly asking this, but I can't believe I didn't realize it. So you said you had to change your point shoes because of the humidity here. So say, hypothetically, you were dancing in a drier area like Phoenix, Arizona. Would you have to change your shoes less?
Possibly. It depends on how much my feet are sweating too. So the humidity breaks the shoes down, but also like if I'm burning up, like if I'm working really hard and sweating a lot, the sweat will do the same. I tend to find that in the winter time, my feet are so cold that I don't sweat through shoes as much. But I guess like a dry heat, I don't know. I've never really been in dry heat my whole life. So that probably would break them down a lot less. But the weather definitely plays a part in breaking of point shoes. Like the last couple weeks of April, I have shoes that I wore for about not even a week, a couple days, and I just can't wear them anymore because they're too soft.
Pretty crazy.
So I think
Phoenix would be good then. Okay. In conclusion. Okay, that's all.
What do you do during the summer?
So during the summer, so we have off. After our last program, we have basically 3 months to do whatever we want. I try to take class when I can, just to stay in shape. And stay in shape meaning like staying in ballet shape, using like the little muscles that you use to dance with. But I also teach. So Carolina Ballet has a young dancers program that I teach in that. So I'll teach for 3 weeks in end of June and into July, 9 to 12-year-olds, which is really fun for me because that's a time that you can learn a lot of really small details in dance that if you learn them early, you don't have to think about them so much later. So I really love being able to teach those things, but also just to see the enthusiasm of the younger dancers, of like truly enjoying every single thing that they're doing. Because sometimes as a job, you forget that it is fun. and there are fun things about the job, and so to have like the younger ones kind of remind me of that is really cool. And then traveling, actually, just trying to go as many places as I can that I didn't get to go during the year.
That's awesome.
Talking about traveling, does Carolina Ballet travel? Do you guys ever travel for performances?
The company used to a little bit more than it does now. The farthest we go now is to Durham and Chapel Hill for Nutcracker. Those are like our technical tour dates. So we don't go very far, but our Dancers in Schools program, so we also have an outreach program. We spent, what's this, April? So March, the last week of March, me and another dancer and our education director went to Person County and did a presentation, so like a lecture demonstration to all of the 3rd to 5th graders in Person County. So that was pretty cool. And then sometimes the Dancers in Schools program goes to Fayetteville. But whole company, we really don't go very far anymore.
I have one quick question, and I'm sure that any of us have a lot of questions. I mean, if we really parsed everything going on stage, whenever we sit there and watch performers with the incredible skills that they have, their talent, we all sit there. We have a lot of time to watch, and we're asking ourselves all these questions about why do they do this? How do they do that, et cetera, et cetera. So these questions may seem like really sometimes a little bit basic, but how often are people paired in dance, and then will they continue to be paired, generally speaking? I suppose it depends on maybe body type. It depends on a number of different criteria that the choreographer or whoever is running the show would put 2 dancers together. And does that tend to carry on, or is it ad hoc? The pairings change every time there's a different performance, or not performance, but I said the show changes. Let's say you're doing one show right now, and then several months from now you're going to do another one. Do they tend to remain the same in terms of pairings, or do they change all the time, and on what would they base that?
So our partners are pretty much by height, actually. The principals kind of have set partners. So, and those are more kind of set on not personality so much, but the way dancers dance together. So they're one of the pairs, Marcelo and Laura, they almost always work together, but they get each other. They're kind of like, they're on the same wavelength. So one of them will do something and the other one just responds immediately. So that's kind of a criteria, at least for the principals, that it's typical partnerships that work really well together and that are very, as you were saying earlier, organic together. But as in soloists kind of have that luxury, but it's more height. But in the core, it's definitely height. It's for me, I get the shortest boy always, but I'm a hair over 5'2", so I don't get that. I don't get to pick and choose, but the tall girl almost always gets the really tall boy. And I feel super lucky if I get a tall dancer to partner with, because it's super easy to dance.
Why is that? I mean,
no one's arms. So, so if your male partner is taller than you, you can extend your arm all the way. So I might be short, but like with my arms extended, it makes me a lot taller. And then on my point shoes, it makes me about 6-7 inches taller as well. So having that extra height on his end gives me a little bit more freedom to move. Whereas if my partner is closer to my height, I can feel a little claustrophobic just because his hands might not be able to reach the top of my hand extended when I'm on point.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think we ought to have commentators like they have in sports.
It would be really helpful.
Explain now that was a great pirouette. My God.
It would would be helpful.
It
And a
would.
lot of times, like, if you go to enough shows and you learned, like during Nutcracker, if you watch people's mouths, which everyone thinks is like really weird, but we talk to each other a lot on stage. And a lot of times you're talking to your partner, because sometimes for us, our partners don't really know what's going on. So we're like walking them through the dances. We're like, come on, can you come with me? You're coming over here. Like, sorry, I messed that up. So we talk to each other a lot. So I think one of my things is whenever you watch dancers, if you have seen it a few times, watch their mouths. They talk to each other a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's a fun tip. Well, here we go. Well, thank you, Carmen, for being here tonight. We're closing up getting to the top of the hour, so I wanted to close out the meeting. Thank you for being here. This has been very informative and helpful.